The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Jack Barzini. Hi, Jack.
Hey, Dom.
And to my left is Pat Scott. Hi, Pat.
Literally to your left.
Literally to my left.
Howdy.
Physically present in the studio with me today is Pat. She's come to visit her grandkids and her daughter and son-in-law, myself. Yep. So it just so happened that you're scheduled to be on while you're visiting, so that's very nice. I always, of course, I do Raising the Bets with Melanie beside me, but so it's not like it's unusual for me to have someone next to me, but it is unusual to have like people both virtually, like Jack, and present physically, like you, Pat. So that's kind of fun. All right, before we get into today's topics, I want to tell you about another show on the network that you are sure to enjoy: The Secrets of Star Trek, which you can find at sqpn.com/trek or wherever fine podcasts are found. So if you're listening to this the day after we recorded, so if you're listening to this on, say, Thursday, May 12th, you will probably have heard that Google had its I/O conference and had announced some things like that. We're going to talk about all that next week. We want to have some time to find out about the stuff, think about it, and not jump into it too quickly. And frankly, I just didn't have time to prepare a lot of stuff on that this week. But we'll definitely talk about whatever announcements there were next time. And there was some interesting stuff, so we'll get into that. This time, we're talking about the perennial topic, the thing that we've been dealing with as long as we've been online. I think the day after this, they turned on the internet. Some guy thought, hey, maybe I could get someone to buy something from me if I throw a lot of emails at him. Yes, I'm talking about spam. And according to this article on Axios, Americans are drowning in spam, which if you are an American or any other person for that matter from any country, you probably just went, duh. So we are getting spammed in email, in texts, in phone calls. We've been dealing with email spam for ages, but text and phone call spams, robocalls is another way we talk about it, have just become a scourge right now. So here's some numbers. There were more spam calls last month than in any of the previous 6 months. Spam emails rose by 30% from 2020 to 2021. You would think that would be impossible for there to be even more spam emails. Nope. The average American received roughly 42 spam texts just in the month of March. And frankly, I'm pushing that
per day.
That's low. Yeah, that's low for some of us. Which is how averages work, I know. There was an unprecedented increase in social media scams last year, according to the Federal Trade Commission. So spam, scams, all that stuff is just still out of control. And so we're going to talk about ways to deal with it. And I think the first place to start is a lot of times you hear people talk about, how do I stop spam? And the sad truth is you really can't. I mean, am I wrong? Or is there?
You can mitigate, not stop.
Yeah.
If you kill all your email accounts, stop using text, you might get so close to stopping spam, but it's not because they're not sending. It's just you're not there to get it.
Yes, exactly. You have to put up the walls. So the best we can do is come up with strategies to mitigate it. But even more is we're going to talk even more about what not to do, the do's and don'ts.
The dangers.
Because spam is inevitable. You're going to get junk mail, junk text, junk calls. So how do you deal with it? How do you avoid it going from nuisance to a real problem, getting scammed by them? And so let's take them one by one. Let's talk about the oldest one in the book, which is email. How do you deal with email spam, Jack? Like, what is your strategy for that? Which it's probably close to mine.
Well, the first thing I do is I have a throwaway email account that I use to sign up for services that I'm interested in using, but that I do not need tied to my main email.
Uh-huh.
And so that way, when that email address inevitably gets put on one of those lists, it's not a big deal because it's not tied back to my direct email. Another thing I do, which I really like about iCloud, is they have this new thing called the iCloud email relay. So whenever I sign up for something with my main email address, like something I actually want to use permanently or that I need tied to my main account, I use that. So it basically gives a spoof address that will it'll like send it to that address and then it relays it to my address, but the service never gets my actual email address.
And when you want to cut ties, you just discard that email account.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And those are the two main things. Other than that, I never click on any links in any email I get, even if I know it's legitimate. I always copy the link and inspect it before I even click on it to make sure that it's safe and
right,
things like that.
How about you, Pat? What is your spam strategy?
My biggest thing that I recommend and do myself is use a service that does good spam filtering, and the two that are best in my book are Gmail and Outlook, Microsoft's mail. Very little gets through there. It all goes into the spam folder. Maybe one or two a month do I actually get into my inbox,
right?
Because their filters are just so good. And so that's the first thing I usually recommend. People who have like a Cox or a Spectrum or Yahoo
Comcast
or any of those, they get tons of it, and those services don't filter it worth beans. And if they do filter it, then the people never get their real email because it's getting trapped up in filters on the server. And so they never even know that they missed something.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. And Google has a way that you can use to sign up for a slightly different variation of the email that you can then kick off and stop getting that after your cruise is over or after you've no longer wanted to be a part of a particular organization. You can just shut that email off.
Right. There's a thing you can do with Gmail accounts where you can type, if you say your email address is dom@gmail.com. That's not my email address, but say that was my email address. If I put dom + and anything at all, that's still Dom. Gmail treats it like dom@gmail.com. And so it's a nice way to you could give out like Dom and new service at gmail.com and give that to new service when you sign up there. And then when if you start seeing that email associated with other things,
they sold it.
You know that they sold it, or so and bad. But then you can also you could filter that, so you could put a filter in Gmail and say anything that goes to this address, send it as a spam.
Yeah.
So that's nice. Gmail spam filters are pretty darn good. That's say 90% of my spam strategy is Gmail spam filters. I do go through the spam folder maybe once. Probably I should do it probably more often than I do, but maybe once a month. There is stuff that I do want that gets caught in there. Right. I stopped getting certain things, especially newsletters, email newsletters. Those are especially susceptible. So stuff does end up getting in there. So that's...
Yeah, there's more false positives, but the real spam typically doesn't hit my inbox more than one or two a month.
Yeah. And then... So that's probably 90% of my strategy. Jack, the point about never clicking on a link in an email, even if I get emails from my bank, quote unquote, that look legit, I still don't click on the link. Just I'm so paranoid about links, because what happens is, in case you don't know, it couldn't look like a legit link. You could even spell out https://www.bankofamerica.com. But that's what it's showing you. What you click on could be something completely different, the actual address it goes to, and then it can look really much like Bank of America or whatever your bank is. So what you should do is, if your bank says, hey, there's a thing, on your account, open up your web browser, type in the address, or use your bookmark or whatever, but don't ever click on a link in an email like that, because especially to something important like a financial related thing or health or anything like that, just don't do it. Avoid giving out personal information, even if it seems innocuous, like who's your first grade teacher. This is more like password related stuff, but sometimes you'll get emails that ask you things or challenge you to. This is a way of getting enough information to get your passwords. That's more password security, I guess. So definitely don't give out that information. I'm trying to think of some other. One of the things that the latest version of Mac OS does, the Monterey, the email app has a thing where it will prevent images from loading when you first open up an email, and then it puts a button up that says load content directly, so that, because one of the things that spammers like to do is they like to see if someone is at the other end of this. They send out millions of emails at a time to a million email addresses. The ones that have a live person at the other end opening up, those are worth more. And if they know you're there, they'll start sending lots and lots of emails to you. And
Right.
one of the ways they know that you've opened up an email is they put images in it that when the email is opened, it loads the image from their server, and it's tied to your particular email address through certain coding ways. And so then now they know you opened up the email. So this prevents that. It opens up, it puts little placeholders for where the images should go. And if you go, oh, this is an email I want the images for, you click load content and it will load the images for you.
Right.
Yeah, Outlook does something similar in a sense that unless you have marked it when you open it to say always open from this sender, it will hide the images, and there's several other services that do the same thing, and I recommend that for my clients.
Right.
Just don't see the images unless you have said, "Oh yes, I trust this one."
Right.
So.
There's another thing that is good to use. This is also for just keeping your password safe, but it's called haveibeenpwned.com, which is PWNED. And if you put in an email address there, it will show you all the different services that have had data leaks that you have an account on, and let you know whether or not they have been breached. And that's good to tell you if you need to have your password changed, but also just if your email address has been leaked out on one of those leaks, and just to keep an eye out for those different kinds of spam.
Right.
Yeah, and Google has just implemented a thing where they're notifying people that their address has been found on the internet. And that's a mixed blessing, because now I have people that are misunderstanding what it told them and think that they have to change X, Y, and Z passwords, when all they're saying is that we found this email address out there on the web and this particular website was breached. But it doesn't mean you have to change all of them just because that email address was found out there.
And even if your email address was breached, it doesn't necessarily mean that your password was breached either.
Right. And you could have changed your password 5 times since that breach occurred, and now they're just now telling people about it.
Right.
So it's confusing there too.
Yeah, it's only an issue if you make your password the same on every single website, which a lot of people do.
I tell people not to, but they still do.
And this is why one of my mantras is use one password or a password manager like that, so that you have a different password everywhere. It makes it easy.
Yeah, I do have a situation where I've got a lot of people in their 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, a password manager is more than they can handle.
Sure.
But I give them some techniques for making sure that their passwords are unique for different websites, using some type of an algorithm or a patterning that they can, because they just can't deal with a password manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's actually a good thing, is help your parents, help the elderly people in your life, the people who are not tech savvy. Make sure that they're aware of this stuff. Like, you're listening to a podcast about technology, you're halfway to there, but there's a lot of people who won't be doing this in who are in your life. You need to help them figure this stuff out too. One other thing is, don't ever reply to spam. Don't click here to unsubscribe, or just reply to unsubscribe from this. Don't ever do it. that again is telling them that there's a live person on the other end.
Yeah, and I have family members that reply to harass the spammers, on text especially, or people who will start saying stop, and it doesn't stop them. It continues on. Now they know they've got a live phone number that they can sell for more money.
Right.
It's not like the old days where it was one person calling you and you could actually keep them online just to mess with them. They're sending out like hundreds of thousands of messages.
Right.
So let's move from email to text and talk about text and SMS and text, that sort of thing, that kind of spam. There are two kinds of messages you can get on your phone via text, your SMS. There's ones that have a phone number attached to them or a short code, so like either 4 numbers or a whole regular phone number. But then there's ones that come from email accounts. The ones that have numbers, phone numbers or short codes, are easier to block, but email accounts are coming through what's called an SMS to email gateway at the carrier, and though the carrier will tell you we can't block that, we can't block those messages. So what you have to do is this is what I had to do with AT&T is I had to call, and it was not easy. I've talked about it before on the show. There's a particular number you call that you tell them over and over again, I need you to disable the email to text gateway for my number. That's all. Because you don't want people emailing. So what it is someone's sending an email to your number at Verizon.net or AT&T.com or whatever the particular thing is, that you have an email address associated with your phone number. And so they're emailing spam at it. So if you turn off that gateway, that turns off that email address associated with your phone number, not your email address, but this random thing that AT&T or Verizon has set up to connect. Then that will stop most of it. The funny thing is I've actually started getting some of these again, and I'm not sure if the gateway is off, why they're coming through. I think they might have turned it back on. I have to give them another call.
Well, I had a situation where I had a family member that used to have an Android, went to an iPhone, and somewhere in there, when a text message got replied to, instead of using just the phone number as an SMS, now it tried to pick up something else. And so that got put in an address book. And so every time that person was involved in a family text, they were getting it through an email gateway.
Well, yeah, that's a little different. But you can have in iMessage, you can have an email address associated as the primary instead of your phone number. And that becomes a problem because again, people who are sending via Android text messages cannot send to iMessage email accounts. It's a mess. It's a real mess.
I will say also, I switched from Android to iPhone earlier this year using the same cell service still. And although I prefer iPhone for most things, the spam filtering both for texts and calls on Android is much, much better.
Yeah, because it's open. There's more opportunity for third parties to get in there. Apple has to do a better job of opening up the APIs, the programming interface, to allow third parties to build better filtering software. Because you're right, it is like Malwarebytes is an app that for Android and for iOS that does claim to block spam texts, except on the iPhone, it doesn't appear to do anything. For it at all, at least in my case.
Well, AT&T and several the others also have their own Call Protect, etc., and that gets maybe 30% of my spams show up as spam calls or spam texts, but not very many, and so it's still very imperfect.
Here's some do's and don'ts. I'll have links to these articles that I'm will be referring to, but some do's and don'ts. This is from Norton on dealing with spam texts. So they say don't reply directly to any spam text message. Don't click any links in the text message. And the usual precaution of if it sounds too good to be true, it is. You have not won a special prize. You are not being given money by Bill Gates. Or Apple is not giving you a free iMac.
Or if it attempts to scare you into something.
Right.
Urgency.
Your nephew has not been abducted or put in jail or whatever. That has not happened. They say to review your cell phone bill regularly and see if there's any unusual charges. you can they talk about blocking numbers, but frankly, that's not a very effective technique. But mostly because they really come from the same number over and over again. I mean, if you do see the same origin number, phone number, go ahead and block it. I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that. I wouldn't spend a lot of time blocking every single phone number, but you can. Similarly, they say to put your cell phone number on the National Do Not Call Registry. That only works for companies that are legit, not fly-by-night overseas spam factories who don't care. Yeah. Your carrier might have a call blocking service, but there are also third-party apps like NomoRobo, Hiya, RoboKiller. What I had another one. I think what's the other one I had? RoboKiller, NomoRomo. And they had a couple others on there that I hadn't heard of. Umail, Truecaller, and TrapCall. They all have varying levels of ability. I've heard lots of good things about NomoRomo and RoboKiller. All of the carriers have their own apps that allow you to report and or block. One thing you can do, I didn't mention with the spam text, is you can forward spam text to your provider's spam abuse number, which is always 7726. That spells out spam on the keypad. And if you forward a text to them, they'll say, okay, thanks. Now what's the number it came from? And then you copy and paste in the number as a reply. So I don't know how effective that is. I don't know if it does anything. I do it. It makes me feel a little better.
Yeah, I kind of do it because I figure if that'll cut down maybe on some of the spam. And I've also just put that number into my address book so I can just type SP and it fills it in for me so I don't have to remember the number.
Right.
I think it suffers from the same problem that just blocking the number does, where they're not going to use the same number more than once. So you'll block that specific number, but it's not doing a lot. Another thing to be aware of is when you're looking at those spam blocking apps is to make sure that it's actually a legit app and not a sketchy app that's just trying to get the information. Because there's lots of apps out there that claim to be for blocking spam or blocking robocalls that are kind of sketchy. So make sure you're using something legit.
Right. Go with a name brand like NomoRomo or RoboKiller or Hiya, Hiya. Those are all name brand apps. Or the carrier apps like AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile. Those actually are usually blank label versions of these same apps. Like I think AT&T is just put their logo on top of Hiya, the Hiya app. So yeah, stick with the big well-known ones. Then there's the FCC has, the Federal Communications Commission has a web page with some advice. One of the things I think is that we all do this now with robocalls. I don't answer the phone. Like if it's a unknown number, it goes to voicemail. I mean, I in fact, actually that's one good tip. On the iPhone, there is a setting that you might not know of called for silence unknown callers. And I'm trying to bring up the settings app. So you go settings, phone, and then scroll down to silence unknown callers, on or off. And I have that on by default, so that if I get a call that's not from a number that has no caller ID, it's either not on my contact, my address book, or if it doesn't send a caller ID name. I think it's even if it's not in my contacts book.
Yeah, it's just not if it's not in contacts.
Yeah, it won't even ring the phone. It'll just show up as and it'll say it'll record it and say, hey, you had a call at this time, and and if they leave a voicemail, I'll see there's a voicemail there, but it won't ring the phone or anything. The downside is if I'm expecting a call from somebody like a doctor's office or a contractor or somebody who I don't have their number already, I have to turn it off while I'm waiting for their call.
Or keep your phone right in front of you so that you can see it coming in.
If I'm waiting for a call, I have to. You have to do that. But most of the time, it's great because my phone just doesn't ring. If the caller ID shows a local number, like you say, your area code and local exchange are 978-343. If you see calls coming from 978-343, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a local number. What they're doing is they're calling all the numbers in that exchange from a spoofed number from within that exchange to make it seem like it's your neighbor. it's not.
Yeah, and actually, there's a case there where you don't necessarily want to block it because it is a spoofed number, and that could be a legitimate number. And I've had people that they had that happen, that they really blocked their friend because they didn't write in their address book, and then they blocked that fake number.
Right.
I was going to say, for me, when I get calls from my area code and local registry number, I know it's fake because my area code is from a completely different place that I don't even live anymore.
Right. Well, that's my phone number dates back over 20 years, my cell phone, and it's for the other side of the state for me. So it's like, yeah. In fact, sometimes I get wrong numbers, and they're usually in Spanish. It's a heavily Hispanic population in that town. So it's like, I know this isn't for me. I don't speak Spanish, so no habla español. And but yeah, it's either a wrong number or just totally, a scam. So I don't even bother answering those calls anymore.
Yeah, in fact, actually, there's a lot of times where I find that if it's a number that I think might be possible, if I leave a message, there's a lot of times people will ring accidentally because they looked up my number, they didn't mean to hit me. So if they don't leave a message, I don't call back,
right? Because
I just figure it was an accidental call or a spoofed call.
So there has been some efforts by the FCC to work with carriers to cut down on spoof, robocalls and spam texts. They have this new stir shaken protocol that they're doing. Nothing has been all that effective. They claim, they claim things are better, and then the spammers figure a way around it, and they do the next thing. So we're really on our own to really, at this point. Hopefully something better will come along and the technology will improve to fix this. But until then, we just got to come up with these different strategies. There's another article I'll put in the show notes from Consumer Reports on the best way to block robocalls. It goes over a lot of this similar things that we talked about, but there's a few other things in there that might be worthwhile for you to look at. I did put out a call into our StarQuest Discord community, our online community of listeners, and for their suggestions. And I got some people suggested that the app Fair Email for Android is a privacy-focused email app that will help with blocking, preventing you from being tracked or preventing spam from getting information about you. Someone else suggested the Unroll.me service, but I should have looked it up because I thought there was a service that was supposed to unsubscribe you from a bunch of
mailing lists.
Yeah, mailing lists and stuff like that, like old subscriptions to old mailing lists that you don't want anymore. But I think it was Unroll.me, now that I think about it, that it turned out that they were actually selling information. So let me just quickly Google that.
I think that's right. It was either like unsubscribe.me or unenroll.me. I feel like was one of the ones that got busted with selling your
really
data.
Gathering,
Yeah, that's what. Now I quickly Googled it. Unroll.me is selling your information here. So there's an alternative that they suggest, and they may have gotten better since this, because this was 5 years ago when it started. But yeah. Well, in any case, I'll see if I can get a link in the show notes to see if there's any alternatives to that. But what they purported to do was to unsubscribe you from mailing lists. But it turns out that they were collecting information on you because in order to do this, they had to be in your email account, and so they saw all your email and were collecting data on all your email. They're doing, it was really
evil.
nasty thing. Yeah. Anyway, that's. I feel bad because I feel like I wish we could have come up with some ironclad way to put up walls and a moat around your phone and in your computer to protect your email and text.
Don't use them. That'll work.
but there isn't a ironclad way to protect ourselves from this stuff yet, and this is one of the failings of technology today, is that it can't stop this stuff yet. And hopefully we'll get there, that there'll be ways, some clever folks out there to come up with some ways to stop the clever folks who are trying to spam us.
Well, and there is one other form of spam too, as I was thinking through this on Facebook, there in groups and stuff. There's a lot of spam that occurs in legitimate groups that people will sign up to a group and then start spamming the groups. And so people, it takes a while for people to realize this was not a legitimate post by some group member that had a interest in this topic. It's spam. And so again, you can mark it to Facebook as spam.
Yeah, and you can block. That's the nice thing is you can on Facebook and Twitter, you can block someone and never see anything they post again until they go start a new account. But you can block that account, and so that's worthwhile to do. Yeah, I was in a Boy Scouts group, and someone just started spamming this stuff in another language, like in another alphabet, like from on the other side of the planet, and I'm not sure why. And what's frustrating is when the admins don't do anything about it.
I'm in some groups that are pretty active admins, and that helps. But
yeah, I mean, you go to the grocery store and there's spam on the shelf. You just can't avoid it.
And just cook it. That's right. Excellent. So if you have any questions about spam and dealing with spam, if you have suggestions for ways to deal with spam that we haven't talked about, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at technology@sqpn.com or head over to our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. We'd love to have you join us over there. We have some great conversations and a lot of fun, and people ask questions and we do our best to answer them as well. All right, before we move on, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Philip M., Rebecca C., Alphonse F., Donald F., and Tom E. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Well, folks, it is time to pour one out. Yes, it is it's not really a red letter day, but it's a sad day in technology because a milestone event has happened. I'll stop prevaricating and just get to the point. Apple has announced that the last iPod for sale is being end of life. It will only sell them while supplies last. They're making no more. And if you want to know, the last iPods available right now are iPod Touches. It's been 20 years of iPods. Yeah. Amazing. So
a lot of history.
Jack, tell me about your iPod interest. You have actually an interesting iPod passion.
Yeah, I do. So I was about to say, what am I going to do if I can't get any more iPods?
As he holds up a literal handful of iPods.
I've really enjoyed actually getting into, it's not even the iPod Touch, it's the older ClickWheel iPods because they're so user serviceable. It's really easy, especially the 5th generation video iPod, which came out in 2005. You can open those things up. You put in a flash drive instead of a hard drive, put a new battery in, and they're good to go. So it's been fun to be able to modify those. And you can still pick those up online for decent prices, although since the modding community has kind of gotten into that, the prices have gone up. But yeah, it is a interesting day to see because the iPod was really where I first got into technology in the first place. And that was mostly because I needed to find ways to acquire music as a poor teenager. So I had to find ways to find music in certain ways. But yeah, so it's
creatively.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes sense that they've discontinued it because the iPhone does everything that it does at this point. But it is the end of an era.
It's kind of interesting because who was the iPod Touch for these days? I mean, it was really anyone who didn't want a phone but wanted what an iPhone could do. They just didn't want the phone part. So I'm going to guess there's a lot of like vertical markets like retail and other places like that, schools maybe a few parents who wanted to give something to their kids but didn't want to give them a full-on phone, that sort of thing. Although it was kind of expensive for that. What I was doing was recycling old phones and just not putting phone service in them,
right?
Which is probably,
and that's what I recommended to clients. Who said, well, I would like to get an iPod, and I said, don't just take your existing phone when you get a new one, hand it down, and just don't put service on it, and they can do Wi-Fi and do everything that the iPod Touch can do.
But as far as iPods go, like for me, my iPod days go all the way back to the original iPod, the FireWire 5 gigabyte, 1,000 songs in your pocket iPod, which when they came out with that, I so wanted one. I saved my pennies, lots and lots and lots of pennies. Those were really expensive at the time. And I mean, it was awesome because of what I had before that. I had a Diamond Rio MP3 player, which I won.
Oh, nice.
I won in an online contest. It was wild. And that could hold like a card with maybe like an album's worth, like literally like 16 songs. And then an iPod comes out, it's 1,000 songs. It seemed like so much music. Who could ever listen to all that music? And over the years, I've had all different kinds of. I've had shuffles. I've had the video iPod 5th Gen, the iPod Minis,
The click wheel
ones, the touchpad ones. I've had them on my commute. They were my podcast listening device, or walking. I mean, they've really. And as far as a cultural thing or a technology thing, iPod was there that really launched Apple to be the company that could make the iPhone. And I mean, the original iMac kind of saved Apple, but it's the iPod that really launched Apple to become the company that could be the iPhone company.
Well, and their iconic white
the white earbuds
with a little cord down to the iPod. I mean, that was just iconic.
Yeah.
And
yeah, they went from being a computer company to being a consumer electronics company when they came out the iPod.
That's right. I mean, it's fantastic, and it really deserves a place in history, not just technology history, but just history in general, because of the way it's changed everything. I mean, again, it was the iPod Touch was the iPhone before the iPhone, and it really is the root of so much that's changed for good and for ill, I guess. But it is really amazing. So as Apple says, the music lives on, but the iPod does not, except in Jack's shelf.
We can find all we want to there.
Yes,
exactly.
Hey, can I send you one to repair?
You actually could, yeah.
I have a young man who's in his late 20s that is a little challenged, and he has always had iPods, and he had two because at some point one would not hold all the songs he had, so he went to a second one. And this is going to be very sad news to him because he's been buying old ones and getting somebody to put another hard drive in them, and that person's no longer around. So
oh wow, yeah, maybe
I might hook you up.
Let's hook you up. So let's another one of our headlines today. This is an interesting one that Pat, you showed me today. Is the Vatican is opening its own VR gallery. The headline says to democratize art. I'm not sure what that means, but it's full of buzzwords. This article, but I like what's going on behind the scenes here. So the Vatican Museum, which is one of the world's leading museums, just whether you're Catholic or not, the fact is it's one of the most amazing art collections in the world, is teaming up with a company called Sensorium Corporation, which is a quote unquote metaverse developer, to launch an official NFT gallery. I don't know why it's an NFT gallery. It's virtual art. Like it's taking the artwork that's in the Vatican museums and making 3D virtual representations of them. But you can then, if you have a VR headset or even just a desktop computer, you can visit the galleries and see them. So you don't have to travel to Rome to see this great artwork. You can see it from the comfort of your own home. And this is the sort of thing I love about the internet, is getting access to things that we would never could have imagined getting access to even a few years ago. Pretty awesome. What do you think, Pat?
Oh, when I saw this, I just thought, yay, the Vatican Library and going to see all of those things that we did when we visited Rome, and we could only do it in a hurry and just right then.
Right.
And now this opens it up. That's the democratization of it, is that it opens it up to the world of people who cannot travel.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to stand in the back of a crowd, everyone gawking at, like with like the Louvre, the Mona Lisa way over there, or Michelangelo's David, or you
And
can go.
You can zoom in on it. And
You
get
can
close.
walk right up to it without some, Italian docent saying, "Hey, back up! It's good, don't get so close." That, I mean, you really you can take all the pictures you want in the Sistine Chapel if it's in VR. It's just, I love this idea of being able to do these, to see these things. Like I was saying years ago, like I can't wait till the Vatican Library, like the Codex Vaticanus, which is one of the ancient compiled books that make up the Bible. Like, it's so precious that only accredited scholars are allowed to even be in its presence. I mean, it's that
you
sort of thing.
Photograph it and then make it available to everybody.
Exactly. Anyone can go look at it. You don't have to be an accredited, academic to be able to see these things. And so that's the things I love about this sort of thing. And this is the promise of VR. And so, we need to digitize all of this artwork and at the highest possible quality so that everyone can experience it.
I like the fact that they called it a holy NFT gallery.
Holy NFT Batman.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was like, wow.
Yeah. I'm not sure why NFT other than it's a buzzword, because it doesn't have to be a non-fungible token to be a digitized piece of artwork.
Well, unless what they're doing is saying this is an NFT that you can copy it, but you don't own it, and therefore maybe some donations might be involved. Possibly.
I suppose that's a possibility. It feels like a lot of buzzwords, but
Yeah, there was not a single Bored Ape in the Vatican Art Museum, so I don't know if they're NFTs.
That's right. Here's another VR interesting thing: is NASA needs your help. That's right, your help building a VR Mars simulator. NASA has built. So here's the thing: it's called the NASA Mars XR Challenge. They've built a simulation of Mars using the Unreal Engine, which is not just a game engine. That's really important to point that out. The Unreal Engine is what they use or have used, I think, in seasons 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian to create the virtual sets that they used. I think Lucasfilm has developed their own engine by this point. But nevertheless, NASA has built this simulation of Mars, and now they need to populate it with stuff. And so what they're looking for, and so the simulation has full Martian days, day-night cycles, changing weather, Martian gravity, etc. What they need from us, they're crowdsourcing this, is realistic assets and scenarios that one may encounter while stationed on the big red planet. So habitats or various environmental things that could happen, and as well as scenarios of things you can do, which I'm thinking someone's going to have to do the Watney Martian.
Put in your 3D model of Matt Damon.
Yeah.
I'm going to build a potato growing habitat.
Yeah.
So it's called the Hero X Challenge, I think. Well, it's called the NASA Mars XR Challenge, but it's hosted on a site called Hero X. So what they're looking for is people to contribute VR assets and content for this. So what do you think? Is this something that what do you think about, like, even being able to go in and I don't know if this is going to be the sort of thing where the public will be able to go to walk around in these Martian environments or not, but what do you think of NASA doing this sort of thing?
I think it's a cool idea, and I like the idea of them reaching out to the community and making all the stuff available. It'll be interesting to see how reciprocal it is. Like, if you're going to make assets that really actually contribute to these kind of situations beyond just, here's a well-designed red rock you can put in your environment, like,
right,
they're going to have to feed data to the community. So if they're actually providing that data to people, that will be interesting to see. It's a little bit like the SETI at home kind of project where they're democratizing this process. I think it's cool. I think they need to get a little bit further along in the process to have it really mean a lot, because as it stands right now, it's basically just, hey, will you come populate our 3D environment so we don't have to build assets? But if they start providing more data to the community as they get data from the various missions, that'll be cool to see.
That would be good.
And I would, as you say, I would like to really be able to have that as something that could be explored through VR headsets or through desktop computers, 3D, surround whatever. I think that would be really cool.
If they public domained it, so you could have like a video game set on Mars with like
supernatural. We could
you could do workouts on Mars in the Mars gravity, or like you could do what was the Schwarzenegger Total Recall, get to Mars. So and then our last headline is it's a little bit of an older headline, but I just rediscovered it. In what happens, the State Department, U.S. State Department, has started a new cyber bureau, which is cyber. It's like Neil Steve. It's Neil. Who is the one who did the Cyberpunk?
Neil Stephenson.
Was it Neil Stephenson?
Yeah. Like it's not
cyberpunk.
We've just decided cyber is the word we're going to use for things, I guess, that are tech related. But it's so the State Department has launched a Cyberspace and Digital Policy Bureau, which is interesting because you think about it, like, what is this bureau going to do? The Justice Department will pursue, hackers, international hackers, and that sort of thing. The NSA is protecting us from like nation state actors who are, hacking and ransomwaring us. So what are these guys doing? Well, the purpose of this bureau mainly is to be out in the international realm, negotiating with other countries and with international bodies like the UN over policies and regulations, because a lot of the regulations and policies that govern how the internet works are international. They're actually, not US regulations. They're UN agencies or other independent agencies even. So it's a good idea to have a part of the State Department that's dedicated to this. And in fact, the head of this new bureau is going to be an ambassador, a U.S. ambassador. They're going to have that credential. So I think that's kind of an interesting idea. What do you all think of? Is it just bureaucracy, or is it? Think it's going to be effective?
I think it's an interesting idea. I think with a lot of things the government does with emerging technologies, they are usually at least 5 to 10 years behind the curve. I think it's difficult because the internet, by its very nature, is distributed, and so you're not going to know exactly where something is coming from. So how do you handle that under U.S. law? And that's something that the Justice Department has had issues with for years. So
right, it
seems a little bit redundant, but maybe if they kind of can narrow down their vision more, then it'll be worth something. But I think it's going to require cooperation from like multinational agencies before it really means anything.
One of the things they mentioned that the first things they're going to have to deal with is setting the rules for international 5G, the use of 5G, including the problem of all of this 5G telecommunications equipment made by Huawei, a Chinese government-run company, government-owned, where the U.S. intelligence has pretty much said that it's riddled with Chinese spyware, and so that they can intercept calls. So how does the international community deal with this fact? And so this is one of the things that they're going to do is, in the international talks, they're going to be involved in that. So I like the idea that we're making tech policy, technology and communications policy a key aspect of our foreign policy. So
it's kind of like building a framework that all people could each hook into, each nation could hook into, as opposed to saying, here's the rules for everybody, or here's our rules. It would be nice to have that framework to kind of tie them all together.
Yep. Excellent. All right. So that's our headlines this week. Let us move on to our picks of the week. And Jack, I'm going to let you go first. What is your pick this week?
My pick this week is a iPhone or iPad screen protector from a company called Paperlike. And basically what it is it's a screen protector that is completely matte, and it is very textured. So it kind of replicates the feel of a high grain paper. And it's really nice for drawing on with the Apple Pencil, like if you use Procreate or one of those different apps. I have it for my iPad Pro, but they have it for all the different models of iPad, from the mini to the standard size, and then both sizes of Pro. And it's $39.99 for every single size, just across the board, and you get 2 screen protectors with each. And I've really enjoyed it because it gives you that tactile feedback like drawing on paper that you don't really get when you're drawing just on the glass screen itself. So
Right.
I really enjoy it. I definitely recommend it.
I'm not much of a artist, but I do write. I take notes on my iPad, and that is a big thing. Is the even if you're just writing, having that friction, that slight drag on the pencil or pen is different. So this sounds like a great idea. I like the idea. It's not too much, $39, and plus it protects the screen, which I'm always feeling leery of. That's a lot of glass. I've broken my iPad screen before. It's not good.
I just chipped mine.
Oh, makes me feel bad. Excellent, good pick, Pat. What is your pick this week?
Well, I've been kind of course, looking at VR and different things, but I happened to run across an article after I was talking to somebody about doing virtual reality 3D puzzles. I ran across the Google Arts and Culture app again and found that, golly, you can do jigsaw puzzles on there from well-known artwork or science pictures or different things, and you can say I want them easy, medium, or difficult, and you've got these jigsaws that on an iPad. I had 2 grandkids today playing with the iPad and putting together the jigsaw puzzles, and you don't lose the pieces. But more than that, they had a whole lot of other things that were things like guess where this piece of artwork was, and then you could try to pinpoint it on a map, and it would show you were within 2 kilometers or 8,000 kilometers of wherever this artwork really came from. And so they've got lots of games, lots of museum visits and things like that. I'd forgotten about it.
Yeah.
And it's all free, all really neat to explore.
Yeah. One of the things I like is there's a selfie game in it where you can take a selfie of yourself and it will show you artwork that looks like your selfie. And that was fun. If you have a distinctive look, that you'll come up with some fun stuff.
So if you've got kids, especially, it looks like these kids were really enjoying seeing all the different things. And Bella even mentioned, I've used it for this.
Right. Yeah. It's not just like you can tour museums and look at art, but there's all kinds of ways to interact with the art in it.
And some of them were multiplayer, which surprised me. They had on the jigsaw puzzle, you could do it solo or you could do it multiplayer with somebody else. Nice.
Cool. I like that. So my pick this week is a little piece of hardware. So I mentioned before I got a Mac Studio, and people had been saying, "Oh, with the Mac Studio, it's got so many ports, you'll never use them all." I'm like, yeah, I still need a USB hub. I have a lot of USB, the old USB plugs and things that plug in cameras and other stuff, and so I still need a USB hub, and no USB hubs ever seem like enough. There's a 7-port hub, barely a 10-port hub, maybe. So I went full bore. I went out there and I found Sabrent has a 16-port USB 3 hub that does both data and charging, and it's got its own power brick. It can do 90 watts of power, which is decent. That's a pretty good amount of power, split between all of the USB ports. And what's nice is each port has a switch, so you can turn them off if you don't need them. So you're not sending power to ports that don't need them.
But you don't have to keep unplugging them.
Right. And you don't have to unplug your thing. You just turn it off. So it is 16 ports, and I'm happy to say I have like 8 ports free right now. So, but I'm sure I will be using more of them. And so it's a great little USB hub, and the price has gone up recently. I know I didn't pay $90 for it, but that's what it's going for right now. I thought I must have paid like $70, I think, when I got it. So everything is more expensive these days, inflation, etc. So, but it. For if you need it, if you need that many ports in a hub, you need it, and this is the thing that you just have to go get something like it.
And just a comment, I'm glad to hear it has a lot of power, because I've got a lot of people who will buy a 7-port hub, and as they plug things in and out,
right,
all of a sudden the other ones start failing because it's not enough, and you have to have a powered hub.
Yeah.
And sometimes even that's not enough to really be splitting the power between those. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say I need to spend the time until I'm on the show next to find a USB extension that has even more ports, just to one up you on that.
If you can find a 24-port hub, I might buy it. I don't have 24 things to plug in, but I might just for that. Actually, I got my label printer when I first set up my Mac Studio. My label printer was messing with the whole USB bus.
They take more power.
And I think that must be what it was. I mean, it's powered on its own, but I wonder if I could plug it into this port. Now that I have this new USB hub, whether that would solve that.
Well, either that or you plug it into one of the other ports and let this USB hub handle all the rest.
Yeah, actually, the nice thing is that my Rodecaster, which is my my studio mixer, I've got it connected via USB-C now, so which is a higher speed thing, but it also frees up a port because it wants to be connected directly to the Mac Studio, which takes up one of the two USB-A ports. So now it's USB-C. I have a free one of those, so that's good. That's good. Awesome. Let's move on. So now that we've done all our picks of the week, we could wrap things up. We would love to hear what you think of our discussion, and you can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. You can send an email to technology@sqpn.com or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And you'll find links from our discussion and our picks of the week in our show notes at sqpn.com. We would love for you to write a review of the show in Apple Podcasts. We haven't had one of those in a while, and those really do help us get the show out there. So if you can write a review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you can write a review in one of the directories, share the podcast with your friends, help us grow this community and reach more listeners. We'd also like to thank James, who provides research assistance for our episodes. Until next time, Jack Barazini, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks, Tom.
Pat Scott, thank you as well.
Thank you.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.